After back-to-back overtimes to open the Stanley Cup Finals, the Panthers packed a punch in Game 3, winning 6-1. It bodes well for the defending champs, who historically go on to win the series when up 2-1 in the Stanley Cup Finals. It was a big day for Sam Bennett. He had one of those goals in the win, and now he's the favorite to win the Conn Smythe, passing Connor McDavid. We got Game 4 tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern from Sunrise. And boy, do we have some special guests for you here on CBS Sports HQ. Here in studio, we've got our Stanley Cup champion and hockey analyst, Pierre McGuire. And we are so excited to be joined by the three-time Stanley Cup champion, Joel Quenneville, joining us, the current coach of the Anaheim Ducks. Joel, appreciate the time. Kind of want to pick up the conversation, kind of dipping into the coach's bag if we can. When it comes to the Oilers, guys, obviously not the way that they wanted to finish that Game 3. Pierre, I'll come to you first. Take us inside Chris Knobloch's kind of conversations right now. You get punched in the face in that Game 3. You're still on the road here. How do they bounce back?
I think the biggest thing is be honest with your team. You know, don't play milk and cookies with them. You know, Haley, the biggest thing I think for them right now is you got punched in the mouth, you're reeling. How do you get it back on the track? Stars have to be stars. The goaltender has to be better. You got to play with way more discipline. You can't be taking double digits and penalties. But I think the biggest thing for the Edmonton Oilers, everybody's talking about the players. The coach has to make a decision too. How does he want to run his bench? How does he want his team to play on the forecheck? How does he want his team to play off of face-off situations? So as much as we're all focusing in on the star players, I think coaching matters too. And so for Chris Knobloch, he's got to take a long, hard look in the mirror in terms of how he carries the game.
You know, Joel, it's interesting. Paul Maurice said recently, and this is not a revolution, but the game ends after the game ends, right? It doesn't carry over into that next matchup. He said this kind of was really relevant for him last year, Game 4, when they got beaten 8-1 to the Oilers. They turned around and played what he said was the best game of the entire playoff. So if you apply that mentality to the Oilers, how can they sort of put that game behind them and get back to what Pierre was talking about with the coaching?
Well, they've proven last year that they can get off the carpet and get right back into a series, being down 3-0 and getting themselves to play Game 7. So they definitely can regroup and recover from a game like that. And we always felt when your team has a performance where you can't really get a good reason on how we were so poor or so bad, guys get angry, and I believe that that type of energy can be channeled properly. They know that they learned the lesson from the last game. We've got to be disciplined. But I think when you play with a controlled anger, there's a little bit of more intensity that in a game like Game 4 that's coming up is going to be necessary against a team like Florida that tries to get you off your game. And they've proven they can play a real solid team game. They bounced back off 0-2 against LA. I would like to see Edmonton come with the right response, which I think they're capable of doing.
You talked about those emotions. There were so many of them in that Game 4. We saw AJ Greer's response there with the water bottle and everything. It's getting kind of out of hand. But one of those guys who we've seen lean into that emotion, to your point, Joel, is Sam Bennett, a guy who you know very well. What do you remember about coaching him all those years ago? And how have you seen him develop into the leader that we've seen him be in 25?
Well, he's a handful for everybody out there. He's, I remember when we acquired him, I talked to Brian Sutter, and he was telling me how good a player he was, and had the pleasure of coaching with him. And in the playoffs, you can see it elevate his game. Not too many guys go through the middle of the ice like he does. 100 miles an hour, fearless, doesn't slow down, picks up speed, in fact, and even with the puck, he even seems to accelerate. And that's those guys are hard to find. I think back, Taser was a little bit like that when we had him. He scores that goal the other night. You know, it was kind of two big goals this year. The series was the one with McDavid's pass over on the power play, and then Bennett's goal there that night. But he's fearless, goes to the hard areas, plays with way more pace than you want, loves this time of the year. And you know, I love coaching him, so I'm not surprised to see him have all the success and the impact he's having on the series.
Pierre, we've talked about Sam Bennett and his impact on this current Panthers team, and it almost seems like they go as he goes when he's out there on the ice.
You know, Coach Quenneville just talked about something, Haley, that's really important. Players have to get a role they have to accept the role, and then they have to perform the role. I think Paul Maurice has done a great job taking over from Andrew Burnett, and Andrew Burnett did a nice job taking over for Joel, but Joel started it all. And you have to identify the player. They basically gave up on him in Calgary. So what changed? He got the role, he accepted the role, he performs the role. That's a big part of pro sports that not enough people focus in on. And I think Joel Quenneville, who's on our show right now, helped create this menace that is Sam Bennett.
Yeah, he is just so much fun to watch, guys, seriously. And it's fun seeing him score goals. I'm sure if you're Stuart Skinner, it's not very fun because the goals just kept on coming, it felt like, in that Game 3. We do know that he is going to get the start here in Game 4, Pierre, but it's kind of been a roller coaster. You and I have talked about it, right? He got pulled in the opening series in favor of Calvin Pickard, and then he came back, I believe, against the Knights. He was really strong against the Stars, and yet here we are. Is that just we have to get used to the roller coasters when it comes to Stuart Skinner, or how can he tidy it up?
He didn't get a lot of help the other day in Game 3, and I didn't even like some of the goals that went in Game 2, but you really can't hang a double overtime loss on Stuart Skinner. Here's the biggest thing. I think Edmonton was bad. I think most people would agree Edmonton wasn't particularly good in Game 3. So rather than blame it all on the goalie, I think the coaching staff's doing the right thing. They're saying, you guys are all swimming together. We're not just picking one guy out of the lump and saying he was the wrong guy, he was the guy that cost us a game. You're all swimming together, and you're all going to pull the rope in the same direction. That's why I think they've decided to go back to Stuart Skinner. And if you look at some of the sound bites, especially from Connor McDavid, their best player, they're always in support of Stuart Skinner, Haley. So I think that matters a lot.
Hey, Joel, when you're in a situation like this where you know what your starting goalkeeper is capable of, and yet, again, coming off of a game where you let in 8, and I know it's not all his fault. I know he didn't let in all 8, but, or excuse me, the 6. Talk us through those decisions that you have to make as a coach. What goes into deciding that Stuart Skinner is going to be able to bounce back?
Oh, Pierre said it pretty well there when he said that I don't think that you can hang this loss on him. I thought he had outside of that first goal, I mean, they made 2 special shots on 2 really good scores, Rahegi and who scored that goal?
Reinhardt.
Rhino scored a great goal, and then Benny's goal on the breakaway. So they were, they were all great shots and great plays, and so I'm not blaming him at all. I think that goaltending, we know the importance of it. Usually the best goalie in the finals is their team's gonna win, but he hasn't hurt their team at all through this playoff series, and I think it was a good pull at that time, and we're gonna move on, and we're gonna all own some of that type of play from last game and look to improve upon it collectively, and let's make sure we give him a lot of support in front of the net tonight.
Well, we can see his numbers in Game 4, 6-0, so that bodes well for him tonight in Sunrise. We'll see if he can maintain those numbers to there. Pierre, something I want to talk to you about, though, is the last change, and we've kind of talked about how that's been in favor of the Panthers. If you're Chris Knobloch and you saw the way that they shut down Connor McDavid in that Game 3, what are the coaching adjustments you have to make knowing that?
Faceoffs are just a starting point. So just because Connor McDavid is a natural centerman, Haley, doesn't mean he always has to play center. You can start him on the wing sometimes. You can start him deeper in the lineup sometimes. You want to make sure it's about the numbers. How many minutes does he get on ice? Joel Quenneville just talked about the way Jonathan Toews can influence the outcome of a game. He didn't always have to score. He can influence the outcome of the game by winning a faceoff, by blocking a shot, by killing a penalty, by being a focal point on the power play, by making Patrick Kane look better. There are all these different things. Everybody's ripping Connor McDavid apart. It's not fair. The truth of the matter is he can influence the game in a lot of different ways, and one of those ways is by making his teammates better. I would look for that if I were Chris Knobloch. I had the honor, and it really is an honor, to coach star players. Mario Lemieux, you don't coach a player like that, you maintain them.
Sure.
And so there were times where we had major matchup situations, and I worked for a tremendous coach in Scotty Bowman. He figured it out. This is where Chris Knobloch, Haley's got to figure it out. How do I get the best opportunities for Connor McDavid?
It's interesting, too. We get so used to seeing Connor McDavid score that when he doesn't, it's almost like, whoa, red flags there. So, Joel, as we turn the page here, when it comes to Connor McDavid, we know he does bounce back. In games that he's held scoreless, he does find the back of the net. What are your expectations for him going into this Game 4?
We saw last year. He won the Conn Smythe and coming back from 3-0. He led his team to playing Game 7. So he has the makeup in him. I always find that the best players in the world at this time of the year usually come forward and make an impact and make an imprint on the game. And I think that as far as trying to keep him away on matchups, I mean, who do you want? You want to keep him away from Barkov. Then you got Mini Barkov and Lundell, and then you got Benny out there hitting at everybody. So you got, it's not like you can pick your poison anyways. You're going to have to find a way, like you said, contribute whether you score or not. You got to impact the game with your pace of play and your urgency and your leadership. You're the best player in the world, and we're fun. It's been fun to watch this whole series. It's been tremendous hockey, and you obviously. Get the matchup to me that's key is I'm sure they're going to see a lot of Forsling and Ekblad and those two guys. I'm sure are going to see a lot of him as well. So it's that's probably the major matchup tonight. But at the same time, he finds ways to do his thing against anybody out there, and that'll be a challenge for Florida, knowing that we expect him to be at his best tonight.
It's hard to be the best player in the world, isn't it? Guys, we certainly appreciate the time. Joel Quenneville and Pierre McGuire joining us here, getting ready for Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals, getting underway tonight in Sunrise. I will mention that the home teams in this year's playoff run are 51-32, and teams leading 2-1 in a best-of-7 Stanley Cup Final go on to win the Cup 80.4% of the time.